Hey y'all, I am taking some time this year to really talk about some of the experiences that we've had with Lizzo's Watch Out for the Big Girls. And of course, I've been questioning myself, questioning the events of all the things that have occurred, and looking at this experience that we're navigating now with the litigation and the girls, some of the girls that were on the show, and then a couple other dancers that were on the touring team. And it's just become increasingly challenging to not share my own experience and my own reflection of all that's taken place. And it's so interesting because the minute that you start talking about you're gonna move forward with something that's been heavy on your spirit, of course, Spirit assists and sends a number of messages that are just like, you need to speak your truth. You need to share about the things that have happened. You can't hold back from that. And just hearing that message continuously, especially over the last week since sharing last week that this was something that I wanted to talk about this year, has been fortifying, also scary, a little nerve-wracking, but we're going to do this work and then we're going to move beyond this. And I guess I think the first thing I want to say is the levels of heartbreak and disappointment that have been really heavy to try to navigate through. This show means so much collectively. It means so much to the history of our media. It means so much to disrupting harmful images of fat black women and fat brown people of color. It means a lot. And the way in which we were brought into the show and pitched the show and what we were told we'd be able to hold as valuable in the space was disrupted. And it's so funny because when your boss isn't in entertainment, you have a chance to get away from them, right? You aren't necessarily inundated with images, visuals, articles, random songs coming up on the radio. You're just not inundated with those things on a day-to-day basis. Now, maybe some of y'all are, depending on what companies and stuff you work for, you're working for now. But one of the most challenging things was holding all of this information, holding all of these intersecting points of harm, and then also having to navigate that I'm literally seeing this person that I worked for everywhere. So there's no getting away from it. In the car, in the hair salon, in the shop, and in Target. Like it's everywhere. And so I think that is a really special circumstance to being in the entertainment industry. And hence the reason why we have to be really strategic about making sure that we actually lean on the strategy support for creating safer, more inclusive spaces, and also making sure that we're not creating environments that are regrettable. And unfortunately, this experience with Lizzo's Watch Out for the Big Girls could have been handled with a lot more care, with a lot more intentionality, with a lot more reverence, and a lot more understanding of how groundbreaking this particular piece of art is in our history and in our social lexicon. But unfortunately, the way in which fat black bodies are regarded, there was little resource put into making this the experience that it could have been. There was little resource provided to make sure that the dancers were actually safe as they were leading, as they were going into this very monumental experience. There was little resource done to create something innovative in the structure and approach to reality TV. And for that, I believe that it's worth discussing. So I'm gonna stop being long-winded. I'm gonna go ahead and get into these things. I'm gonna run through some of these points, fairly quickly, because I don't want this to be like some long drawn out soliloquy, but I really do want to make sure that I highlight some of the things that stood out to me most. So I think that we need to backtrack a little bit, and I want to tell y'all a little bit about how I even got wrapped up and involved in all of this work, and we'll go from there. So I remember it was the summer of 2017. And it was during Pride, and I remember being at a former friend's house, and I was like, who is this chick on TV? Like, she was, I do my hair long, check my back. I was like, oh my God, this is so dope. I'm like, all these black women in this hair salon. She looks stunning. And I'm just like, wow, like, this is next. You know what I mean? This is what we're talking about next. And I don't know what we was watching, what channel, because it was like the music video. It must have been like, I don't know, how we used to watch BET and what was that other channel back in the day? MTV with the music videos. So I'm like, man, this chick is crazy powerful. So I like go and follow her. I'm like looking at all these videos. I'm like, damn, this is really cool. And at the time, 2017 was a really interesting year for me because we are now 3 years past the release of our film Sex is a God Thing. And we were just in a space where we were continuing to add on to the installation. So it was just very present of mind. But earlier that year, the video went stupid viral. I'm talking, it went from, we had 200,000 views or something on YouTube. And then from sharing small clips of the film on Instagram, when Instagram first got the capacity to share 15 to 30 second video clips. So this was what feels like a generation ago, right? So we had just gotten the opportunity to start sharing those clips like that. So I started pulling clips from the film to be able to share with folks on Instagram and market our classes and all of that stuff. So my page personally had a reach that I just hadn't seen yet. I went from maybe 3,000 followers to like 12,000 followers and then like 14. So it was like, it was rapidly climbing. I would gain 1,000 followers in a day. And I was like, so this was like the nature of things that were happening at the time. So I was just telling my friends, like, man, this chick is dope. I'm like, look at this video, yada, yada, yada. Here we go, fast forward, a couple weeks later, I've already followed her. I'm like, man, this is so cool, yada, yada. And I told y'all a couple months before that, Sex is a God Thing had gone stupid viral. And I had to pull some of the clips that I'm talking about. But it had gotten to the point I was like, let's see if we can reach 10 million views on, there was a channel on Facebook called, it's an LGBTQ channel. I have to look up the name of it. But they shared the video in full or a clip of the video, like 60 seconds on Facebook. And from Facebook, someone shared it on Twitter. And then from someone sharing it on Twitter, people started getting back to me on Instagram. So it was like this huge funnel that was happening. By midsummer that year, we'd reached 22 million views. So a couple weeks go by, and it actually happened. I was going on a date, and the next day, I woke up and I must have told this person about all the stuff with the music and like hearing this song, and we had been listening to all these crazy songs. So I was just like, oh man. So the next day, I woke up, and in my inbox is a message from Lizzo. And I literally threw my phone across the room. Like, my poor self. At the time, I don't know what I was thinking because I could have broke my phone. I would have been in a tizzy. And I was like, oh my God, you can't, what the fuck is happening? What is happening? And I'm like, oh my God, I literally just saw a video of this woman like 2-3 weeks ago on TV doing her thing, like whatever. I'm like, she's literally messaging me. So I open up the message and she's, teach me your ways. Smiley face, hard eyes, or whatever it was. And I was just like, oh my God, Lizzo, what in the hell are you talking about? I'm like, I'm such a fan. Yada yada, went through the whole thing. And she was really interested in possibly taking some class. Now, at least that was my understanding at the time. And she was really interested in taking some classes. And so we were trying to coordinate. I was trying to support, maybe set up some private coaching because maybe this is an experience that you want to do in front of other people. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't have to be leading in that way to be effective, right? Like, you can have something private for yourself and then come back and reflect on the experience, share with other people, let them have the experience for themselves. Whenever I've had a celebrity client approach me, I'm always reminding them that this isn't about building off of your name. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like, oh, so-and-so came to class, so nah. This experience is really intimate. It's very personal. It's healing work. It's not always something that you feel like sharing in the moment. Yes, it's sensual movement. Yes, it's sexy. Yes, it's in that space. But that doesn't mean that it's always solely for the purpose of entertainment. And trying to communicate those values and stuff to people sometimes can be a little bit hard because I think a lot of celebrities are used to going into these spaces and then their visual, their name, their everything being attached to the fact that they work with that person. And then it's, does it really get to be personal? Does it really get to be an extension of your own care plan if it's also attached to advertising? And I think that's one of those like trip ups around working with people who have celebrity status and just trying to remind them like, this space is something different. You can get something different from this space if that's what you actually want. And so we did a lot of back and forth, a lot of her saying she was interested, not following through on showing up for things that she said she would show up for, or attending private or small group coaching spaces. Like, we hosted a class out in LA, sent the information to her after we'd been trying to coordinate maybe what the style of class would be or if she was going to come or whatever. And then that didn't end up working out. And I remember somewhere in 2018, I was like, yeah, our theme for this month socially is going to be like, do things that scare you. And I have, you all know, like, part of the reason why we created Sex is a God thing was, one, to disrupt this idea that, you know, larger body fat black women cannot be in the role of the love interest, in the role of the one that's desired or being pursued. We want to show that visual and then also create this visual of a fat black woman loving herself and loving herself through some of life's challenges, and it not being centered around her weight or her aesthetic or whatever the case may be. So I actually went to school for theater and got my degree from the University of Illinois Chicago in theater and performance. This has really been my dream for a long time, to create spaces where you can see more people that look like me in the spaces that we're talking about. And that was our inception for creating the Sex is a God Thing installation. And that spanned from 2014 to 2020. And also just around creating more visuals that give us more reference to the lives of plus size, larger body, dark skinned women that are not rooted in harm. And so I was like, all right, like it's time to do some more auditions, get on stage, just tell people that you're like ready to do this thing. So that's exactly what I did. I ended up actually creating a little video to Juice. Blame it on the juice. Blame it on the juice. And I was like, yes, this is the energy. And I made a little video to that. That video went crazy. And I was like, just talking about doing things that scare us. And I'm like, so I'm going to start auditioning. I'm going to start doing this thing. I'm going to start da 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 da. And we were back home in Ohio for our goddaughter's birthday. And I got a notification that Lizzo was hosting auditions for Coachella. And I like slapped the phone at my husband. I was like, look at this. I'm like, oh my God. I don't know that I've ever flown out to LA for an audition. New York for sure, but not LA. That was a first. And I was like, okay, we're going to do this thing. Come on. I think this is a great opportunity. You know what I'm saying? We'll get a chance to meet her, get a chance to put myself right in front of her, and also show that not only do I do this work around sensual movement, but I'm also a professionally trained dancer, like in different styles. So this can be good. And oh my God, so many members are coming back to me. So we decided to go. I sent my little application in. They accepted me. They was like, yes, bitch, you coming to LA. Come on, we're going to do this thing. Go out there. We get to the audition. What was real, Miller always tells this part of the story. He's literally upon getting out of the car, somebody was like asking to take a picture with me. And it was, it was like, oh my God. And this person ended up becoming like a like fam to us, like super cool person. But it never even dawned on me that in going to the audition that I may be recognized for the work that I do outside of this. And so that was a really that started off the experience. And then we got into the space, and first of all, there was like a whole production team there for the audition, which wasn't really communicated prior to. We also didn't sign any type of like video or image release form. So, and I don't even know if anybody knew to ask for that, but it was like, you're there, you're with Lizzo, like you're right at the cusp of possibly being at Coachella. No one's gonna be like, excuse me, you did something wrong. Like, you know what I mean? And most of these people didn't have like managers or anyone else in the room. And honestly, I would not have known had I not brought Miller with me, because he was the one that pointed out that we were just signing just a regular sheet. Our name and phone number, everybody's information was just laying out there, but it wasn't actually like a contract, like an image release to be able to, for whatever this recorded content was for. And it was like two white guys running around with these big old rigs and cameras. So it was like obvious that they were preparing for something, but we weren't given information as to what. And so like during the middle of the audition, they stop us because they like want to have some Q&A time with us and her and all this jazz. And so she's like going around having people raise their hands so that they can speak. And I was like, oh my God, this is a great chance for me to Not be in the background, not trying to pretend like I'm not who I am, not trying to pretend like you wasn't just in my inbox talking about teach me your ways. I've waited many years to say that. But yeah, so it was just like, I'm like, all right, this is the time for me to say something. So I raised my hand and I start off with reverence. I'm like, yo, I cannot believe I'm standing right here with you right now. I feel like this has been such a long journey. I'm like, I just remember, and before I can even get it out, she like cuts me off. She's like, oh yeah, I see you dancing with this guy and whatever. And I was like, oh my God. She was like, and so I was like, yeah, I need to learn how to do that. Yeah, I'm in there. Yeah, I was just like, I'm like, okay. I just kind of, it was cool to be acknowledged, but that wasn't even where I was going to go. Because in those situations, I don't feel like you really need to distinguish yourself that much from the rest of the group, but you do need a little something to just make you stand out. And so I was just going to talk about how I saw her for the first time and then now on TV and how that experience impacted me, and now how being in the room with all of these other women who look like me. I've never been in an audition room with 30 plus, I'm talking 30, at least 30 plus size dancers who are mostly trained. And there are some people who are more advanced in the space. There were some people who didn't have any dance experience at all, but I have never been in a space like that in my life. I grew up in dance, y'all. Like, this ain't no fly by night shit for me. Like, I grew up in dance. My mother was trenched in the dance economy as an owner of a dancewear store for 15 years. I danced from the time I was training in dance from the time I was 2 or 3 years old. I was in my first professional company at 7. Like, entrenched. So when I'm saying I've been in a number of audition spaces, I've been in a number of productions, I've been in a number of rehearsals, and I've never in my life been in a room with over two. Let's say two, because usually you're the only one. People that actually look like me. That in and of itself was like, whoa, we are here. We matter. Like, we actually exist. And people are trying to make it seem like there are none of us. One, none of us that are this talented. Two, and none of us that are this talented and can get in this room. And it was just a whole experience. So anyway, learn the choreography from her former choreographer, and he did his thing, and we got in there. I felt like we was holding a beat, and we did the individual, how they segment off the groups and stuff. And I just knew, I'm like, okay, Lord, even if I don't make it all the way to the end, I would love just to get a call back. And I'm like looking at the dance. I'm kind of not judging myself. When you're in an audition, you're like, okay, I might be a little stronger than that person. That person's a little stronger than me. Oh, they got this styling. Oh, I do have this. Or, you know what I mean? Like, you start just kind of weighing out the options. And when I tell y'all, they came out there and they announced the callbacks for the audition. And my number never got called. And I was like, what? How? And then I looked at the people who were called, and some people again had super advanced standing and movement, and some of them were not dancers at all. And I felt like that was the first start on this journey where there was a clear outreach, clear interest, clear whatever the case may be. And when I told people I was going to this audition, I mean, it lit the damn internet up on my side of town. You know what I mean? Like, people was like, whoa, this is crazy. Yes, bitch, like, you better do that shit. This is what you've been waiting on. This is gonna be like a collaboration, man. I mean, like people are tagging her, and I know that you're seeing it because I know you're familiar with my name. It's not like I'm someone you don't know. And it's not like I'm someone you don't know that you haven't reached out to. Anyway, so I'm like, all right, heartbroken, devastated. We literally used the last of every follicle of coin that we had to make that a reality. And when I shared with folks afterwards that I didn't get called back and that it just wasn't gonna be an experience to move forward with, everybody was so disappointed. And people were like, the thing is, you don't need to be dancing background for Lizzo. You need to be collaborating with her. That's what God is trying to say. And I was like, I hear y'all on that. But at the same time, I found honor in the idea of being able to stand behind this powerful, black, fat woman and be a part of her vision. I wanted her to know I will literally do whatever to be in support of the dream that you have because I see just how important it actually is. When we get back home, everything just feels like it's in shambles. Like I said, we used the last little bit of follicle of coin to get ourselves out there. And some people might, why didn't you just go by yourself? And I think that being able to go by yourself is great, but I think that having support, having managerial support, having somebody there to like talk in your ear, keep you focused, to see the things that you cannot see is invaluable. And I've gone into a number of spaces by myself, and I find it to be a disadvantage. So I'm gonna take somebody with me up until the point where I can. Up until the point where I literally have to go and do the thing on my own, I'm always going to have support. And that's something new that I am learning to embrace in this next iteration of the work that we're doing. And I came home after that experience, was totally blue, totally devastated. I didn't really understand why things went the way that they did, at least not getting a call back to make it to that portion. And when I say, I can say when I'm off my game, y'all. But for having been not in this particular dance space for quite some time, but still being active in movement and clearly in my musicality, rhythm, condition, all of that stuff, I was on during that audition. And I know it. I know I was. I know in my body and in my heart that I killed it. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's hard to give yourself credit after an audition when you didn't get something as an artist. And that's been it's a tool that I've been learning since I started doing professional auditions in 2011, right? Sometimes you do get the call and you land a national commercial. Other times you don't. And so how do you value yourself as an artist and know and acknowledge the things that you did well or exceptionally well, even if the producers or the director or the casting agent doesn't actually see that. And as a fat black woman, as a fat black dark skinned woman, I'm constantly having to play that game with myself, right? Because you're the casting director, and word from the horse's mouth, they're looking at me and thinking I'm uncastable from the beginning. I don't have a role for you. Maybe you can be backup. You know what I mean? Maybe you can be a supporting character. Maybe you can just stand in the back and be an extra. You know what I mean? I'm facing that from the jump. These girls are facing that from the jump, right? So it's, if we know that this is the obstacle, this is the harm, this is the bias that this particular group of people that they're facing coming in the door. The thought should have been with this production, we need to make sure that there's wraparound care and support to ensure that they have a positive experience, to ensure that this experience is not like the other. We need to go above and beyond, not do the bare minimum because y'all don't think there's an audience for it. Because there's an audience. And there's an audience that actually cares about the way that they are represented. There's an audience that actually cares about the way in which you're showing other little girls that look like us what it means to be us, who we are in the world, how we're valued, how we're treated, how we're regarded or not. So when we get back, we decided to do a little date night, and we went to Second City for an improv class for mental health. And an improv class, I think it might have been even with dealing with anxiety and depression. And I had been low for months after that, it felt. And I was just so confused. I was playing this game of cognitive dissonance with myself. I don't understand. Like, she reached out to me. She obviously has interest in the work that I'm doing, but she's avoidant. She doesn't respond. She doesn't do the things that she actually says that she's going to do. She doesn't show up in the way that I imagined that she was going to show up. And then once getting in a space, I'm like, now there's also this other question of, if you think I'm good enough for this, why wasn't I good enough to be behind you on stage and just do a little light dancing? Because obviously I can dance. Obviously you saw it for yourself, and obviously it's something that you were drawn to and wanted to learn how to embody that space within yourself. So the improv class was like super healing. One, just from the space of using improv as a healing tool, one, to provoke a sense of surrender, a sense of joy, playfulness. And I was really grateful to Second City for creating the space for something like that. And at the end, we were talking about like imposter syndrome and things that have failed and auditions and this and that. And I just was like, I had this weird experience, and I told him about it. I was like, yeah, like, she hit me up. It seemed like it would be a great space for collaboration, and wanted to demonstrate that I was willing to be a part of the vision. Went out there, did this audition. I know I did well, and they didn't call me back. And so sitting in a room full of artists and not just people who aren't in entertainment, the conversation it landed differently. And everybody was like, ooh, hit him in the chest. And somebody was like, I just want to say, Lizzo's not reaching out to me. And it was a recognition. It was a realigning of what had just taken place. This is 2018, now going into 2019. And I remember I had gotten invited to do a workshop series in Chicago in partnership with OTV and the Sundance Institute. And it was really great. We got a chance to meet with executive producers that weekend who were doing their damn thing and working with different communities and making sure that various stories are being brought to the production table level, where people are actually getting deals, getting opportunities to expand their work. And in that space, we also, after we had just been featured at the Black Harvest Film Festival, we pulled together a really powerful film. And even in this space, we were not selected to have additional time with producers. It was like our story just fell to the back. These other stories that were seemingly more palatable were selected to be part of the process where they actually got a chance to sit down one on one with producers and get feedback. And so I was really disappointed about that. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, here we fucking go again. You know what I mean? Like, at what point is anyone going to value our stories and in the ways that we're telling them and all that jazz? But God had other plans. So one of the producers that I met there, and I'm not gonna say this person's name intentionally because I want to give everybody a chance to share their own experience and share their own stories. But I got a chance to meet a producer there, and we just vibed, like vibe. That's the homie. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I actually made a connection with someone. Because normally I'm like, feeling like I'm, nobody's even trying to talk to you. So they're there to be helpful, but they're also avoiding it. It's a very weird process. And we exchanged information and just kept in touch. There was no other information there other than just to keep in touch. You know what I mean? We were just like, just thought each other were super dope, loved the work that we were doing, followed each other on social, and then that was it. Life has gone on. We're now in a pandemic. We've released my newest book, A Return to Pleasure, and also a documentary and performance that was woven and created along with that. And I was looking for a producer who might be able to support me in bringing this work to life in a different way. And I immediately thought of the producer that I'd met that summer at the event. We had talked, and they were like, "Okay, well, you better get ready because I have something for you. I need to get your thoughts on this." And we talked again, I believe that January, and that's when they shared with me that there was a definitive show that was coming into fruition and that they wanted me to be a part of it. And so they needed to know how I would like to be a part of the show. And I was like, I've never been asked this in my life. This is wow. Okay. The auditions were out at the time for Watch Out for the Big Girls, and people have been tagging me in it. It was a lot. And so I was trying to decide if I was going to audition for the show or if I was going to be creative enough to maybe ask for something else. So I danced that morning and I like put on my music and I was just in my space and I was just like, just getting my body in the rhythm. And when I came out of it, sent a voice note pitch back to the producer and I said, this is what I'd like to do actually. And I said, as these girls are preparing to put themselves in front of this audience and preparing to do this type of work and use their vessels for this type of work, who protects them? Who makes sure that the space is ready for them? Who makes sure that they have the supports that they need to be able to honor themselves in this journey and to take care of themselves as they're being thrust into this spotlight? And I said, I'd love to do that work for the show and after the show is complete, once they begin their touring process and things are moving along. And it was like the concept was very well received. And we went into the next phase, which was like, okay, send me your ideas, send me your, like, how, give me like a visualization of what this looks like. Then I went on to meet with the casting team and executive producers from Bunham and Murray and got a chance to talk them through how I came up with this idea and what things we needed to be consider in this process as we're getting ready for the show, how they should be regarding fat black bodies and what that kind of means in our general lexicon, especially from a social justice perspective. And during the conversation, one of the things that I remember was like, oh yeah, we were thinking about maybe having you as the house mother, but you're too young for that. So I just want, so for all of y'all that actually caught that tea, you understand that from the beginning, this was not the right production company led by two cishet white women. They didn't have the range to hold this show with the integrity that the show needs to be held with. And they also weren't willing to ask for the support in order to do so. It was just, it's a quick money grab. We'll get in, get out. They're not really thinking about what this show can mean, what it can do, and how they actually impact media. They're not thinking about that. So from there, they started trying to get social proof that maybe I was the right person to choose for the job. I remember one of the producers did a poll on Twitter asking who are the people that do sensual movement or plus size girls that do sensual movement, and hands down multiple people recommended me, people that I don't even know. And then again on social, it happened. I remember Danielle Young. I remember had tagged me in a comment once directed at Lizzo and was like, oh yeah, this is who I was talking about. No context to me, but it was like, oh dope. I didn't even know that she knew who I was or whatever. So I'm just like, all right, cool. And then there was another time where they were doing a casting search for a plus size ballet dancer. And the former art director at Essence was in the comments recommending me. And I was like, y'all, look, we've been through this before with the audition thing. They're not looking for somebody that's not in the LA area. Let's just let it go. They're like, don't block your blessings. You need to go ahead and apply for this. It's just not the right opportunity. I've reached out to her team, her choreographer, her assistant, whoever, a number of times. And they just completely avoid the opportunity to have support from someone that actually looks like Lizzo. Again, they're really against, they were really avoidant to that whole idea. And so I was super excited. I was like, Danielle Young, she's a phenomenal writer. And then Nia Lawrence over at Essence. I was just like, wow. I don't know why God keeps putting me in this place where people are obviously saying that I have the range, the skill, the talent, the ability, or whatever to be of support to this girl, but she don't want it. And I had just gotten to the point where I said, look, Lizzo will have to call me by name herself before I ever step foot anywhere again on her behalf. Because you've ignored me at this point. You've avoided me at this point. You've created all of this confusion. Do you want to work with me? You don't want to work with me. You want to work with me? You don't want to work with me. You're going to show up. You're not going to show up. All of this back and forth. I've literally gone to what felt like at the time the end of the earth to be able to show that I was willing to be a part of something. And I got rejected in such a big way. And it made everything about it just make my skin crawl. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I told all these people I was going to this audition. And it wasn't just the fact that I told people that I was doing the audition. You know what I mean? Because I know some people just don't tell people until you get things. But then you don't really get to understand the journey. And had I not told people the journey then, today would not matter. It wouldn't. It just wouldn't matter as much. Because you all got a chance to be invested in that moment with me. And you got to feel the disappointment with me and then the recovery with me. And then to see this moment now is, whoa, shit can really change. And I felt like that was something that was important. And in the final rounds of them trying to determine, I guess, if I was going to be a part of the show, they brought the final pitch to Lizzo. And she was like, Rashida KhanBey? Oh yeah, I know Rashida KhanBey.